This is one of the most dreadful, crazy cases of one human's treatment of another human being. More so is the fact of what this person did was to his own flesh and blood. It's crazy and demented. You have to hear this story and stick around to the end. You won't believe what this demented lunatic thinks to this day. Buckle up for another ride through strange, with me and odd mysteries stories. In the picturesque town of Amstetten, nestled in the heart of Austria, a veil of normalcy shrouded a house that harbored a dark secret. To the outside world, it was just another family home, but lurking beneath its ordinary facade lay a truth so bizarre and horrifying it would shock the community to its core. This was a place where the line between the mundane and the monstrous was tragically blurred, where the unimaginable became a grim reality. In the shadows of this seemingly mundane existence lurked Josef Fritzl, a figure whose outward appearance of a family man and respected engineer belied a deeply troubled past. Fritzl, an enigmatic and controlling patriarch, had a history that hinted at darker inclinations, including a previous conviction for a sexual offense. Josef Fritzl, now known as Mehrhoff, was born on April 9, 1935, in Amstetten to Josef Fritzl, Sr. and Maria Fritzl. He grew up as an only child raised solely by his working mother. His father, who was a severe alcoholic, had deserted the family when Fritzl was 4 and never again came into contact with him. Fritzl Sr. later fought as a soldier in World War II and was killed in action in 1944. In 1956, at age 21, he married 17-year-old Rosemary, with whom he had 3 sons and 4 daughters, including Elisabeth, who was born on April 6, 1966. He retired from active employment when he turned 60 in 1995, but continued some commercial activities. In addition to his apartment building in Amstetten, Fritzl rented out several other properties. In 1972, he purchased a guest house and an adjacent campsite at Lake Muncie. He ran it, together with his wife, until 1996. Fritzl reportedly began abusing Elisabeth in 1977 when she was 11 years old. His life in Amstetten was a carefully constructed lie, behind which he harbored sinister intentions and desires that defied comprehension. Elisabeth Fritzl, a young woman with dreams and aspirations, found her life taking a harrowing turn in the quiet town of Amstetten. After completing her compulsory education at 15, she embarked on a course to become a waitress, showing a glimmer of independence. Her first attempt to escape the oppressive atmosphere of her family home came in January 1983 when she ran away to Vienna with a friend from work. But this cry for freedom was short-lived. Within 3 weeks, the police had found her and returned her to her parents' home. Back in Amstetten, Elisabeth resumed her life with a semblance of normalcy, rejoining her waitress course and successfully completing it by mid-1984. A job offer in Linz seemed to be the opportunity she needed to start anew. But fate, twisted by her father's sinister designs, had other plans. On August 28, 1984, just after Elisabeth turned 18, Josef Fritzl lured her into the basement of their family home under the guise of needing help with a door. This door, however, was the final piece in converting the basement into a prison chamber, a project he had meticulously planned. As Elisabeth held the door, believing she was assisting her father, Fritzl's true intentions became horrifyingly clear. He subdued her with an ether-soaked towel, rendering her unconscious, and then imprisoned her in the very chamber she unwittingly helped seal. The bewildering disappearance of Elisabeth shook the town, with Josef playing the role of a concerned father. He presented falsified letters to the authorities, claiming she had joined a cult. The reality was far more sinister. Elisabeth was right beneath their feet, trapped in a nightmare crafted by her own father. For 24 excruciating years, the hidden chamber beneath the Fritzl home became a world of unimaginable horror for Elisabeth. Josef Fritzl, under the guise of a family man, descended into the depths almost daily, or at least 3 times a week, with a chilling routine. He brought food and supplies, but also subjected Elisabeth to repeated assaults. In this claustrophobic nightmare, Elisabeth gave birth to 7 children, all fathered by her own captor. When Lisa, Monica, and Alexander were born, Josef called his wife Rosemary using a voice recording of Elisabeth. He forced Elisabeth to say that she had given birth and asked her mother to take care of them. Rosemary opened the door to find a baby all alone on her front porch on 3 separate occasions. Josef suggested they foster the children. In Austria, convictions are removed from a person's record after the expiration of the penalty. So, technically, once he served his time for previous crimes, all his convictions were removed from the record. As a result of this rule, Fritzl was easily able to receive permission from social services to foster Lisa, Monica, and Alexander. Eventually, Josef realized that Rosemary could not take care of any more children due to her age, so his other children with Elisabeth, Kirsten, Stefan, and Felix remained imprisoned in the cellar with their mother. Lisa, Monica, and Alexander were referred to as the upstairs children, while Kirsten, Stefan, and Felix were called the downstairs children. Josef told the upstairs children that their mother had abandoned them. Elisabeth, Kirsten, Stefan, and Felix lived in the hidden cellar turned prison cell for several years. It contained only a toilet, fridge, sink, and a hot plate. There was a narrow passageway leading to 2 sleeping areas. Each sleeping area had 2 beds. The house, even with regular social worker visits, kept its dark secret well hidden, as nothing seemed to be wrong. The prison itself was a paradox of modest comfort and cruel confinement. After the birth of the 4th child in 1994, Fritzl begrudgingly allowed the space to be expanded from 380 to 590 square feet. Elisabeth and her children, using their bare hands, labored to dig out the soil for this expansion. Within these walls, they had a television, a radio, and a video cassette player, alongside a refrigerator and hot plates for basic cooking. Despite the limited resources, Elisabeth, with remarkable resilience, taught her children to read and write. However, the appearance of normalcy was often shattered by Fritzl's capricious cruelty. He would sometimes plunge them into darkness or withhold food as punishment. The cell had 2 doors. The first door had become virtually unusable due to its weight. The second door was the door that Elisabeth helped Fritzl put into place. It weighed over 600 pounds and was hidden behind a shelf inside the house. The only way to open it was to enter a code in a remote control that Fritzl kept with him at all times. It may appear that there was only one door between Elisabeth, her children, and freedom, but that wasn't the case. They were imprisoned behind a total of 8 doors, all controlled by the remote. He instilled in them a constant fear of escape, falsely claiming that the cellar was rigged with gas and that tampering with the door would lead to electrocution. These threats, though baseless, were enough to imprison their minds as much as the walls confined their bodies. Outside of this hidden world, life in the Fritzl household continued with eerie normalcy. Josef maintained his routine, claiming to spend his mornings in the basement under the pretext of working on engineering plans. His prolonged absences and overnight stays in the basement, explained away to his wife as work necessity, went unquestioned. Even a tenant who lived in the house for 12 years, hearing strange noises from below, was placated with excuses of faulty pipes and a gas heating system. The true nature of these sounds, a family living in captivity, remained a secret too horrific for anyone to imagine. Here is an incredibly horrifying thought about this story. What if something had happened to Josef while Elisabeth and the children were still captive in the basement? For instance, what would have happened to them if he got in a car accident and ended up in the hospital? Or worse yet, what if he suffered a major health crisis and died? What would have happened to Elisabeth and the children stuck in the basement? Remember, there were 8 doors, and the main one was hidden behind a bookshelf. Scary crazy, right? On April 19, 2008, Fritzl agreed to seek medical attention after Kirsten, Elisabeth's eldest daughter, fell unconscious. Elisabeth helped him carry Kirsten out of the chamber and saw the outside world for the first time in 24 years. He forced her to return to the chamber, where she remained for a final week. Kirsten was taken by ambulance to a local hospital, the Landesklinikum Amstetten, and was admitted in serious condition with life-threatening kidney failure. Fritzl later arrived at the hospital claiming to have found a note written by Kirsten's mother. He discussed Kirsten's condition and the note with a doctor, Albert Rieder. However, once at the hospital, Kirsten fell into a coma due to kidney failure. Luckily, Elisabeth had the forethought of sneaking a note into Kirsten's pocket. Elisabeth wrote that Kirsten was afraid of other people and had never been in a hospital before. The hospital staff became suspicious and questioned Josef about Elisabeth's whereabouts, but he stuck to his story. He went into great detail about the, quote, cult that Elisabeth had abandoned her children for. Medical staff found aspects of Fritzl's story puzzling and alerted the police on April 21st. The police broadcast an appeal on public media for the missing mother to come forward and provide information about Kirsten's medical history. The police reopened the case file on Elisabeth's disappearance. Fritzl repeated his story about Elisabeth being in a cult and presented what he claimed was the, quote, most recent letter from her dated January 2008, posted from the town of Kematen. The police contacted Manfred Wolfart, a church officer and expert on cults, who raised doubts about the existence of the group Fritzl described. He noted that Elisabeth's letters seemed dictated and oddly written. Elisabeth pleaded with Fritzl to be taken to the hospital. On April 26th, he released her from the cellar along with her sons, Stefan and Felix, bringing them upstairs. He and Elisabeth went to the hospital where Kirsten was being treated on that same day. Following a tip-off from Dr. Rieder that Fritzl and Elisabeth were at the hospital, the police detained them on the hospital grounds and took them to a police station for questioning. Elisabeth did not provide the police with more details until they promised her that she would never have to see her father again. Over the next 2 hours, she told the story of her 24 years in captivity. Elisabeth recounted that Fritzl abused her and forced her to watch adult content videos, which he made her reenact with him in front of her children to humiliate her. Shortly after midnight, police officers completed the investigation. Fritzl, aged 73, was arrested on April 26 on suspicion of serious crimes against family members. In the early hours after the investigation, Josef Fritzl, then 73, was arrested, suspected of heinous crimes against his family. The revelations that followed would leave the world in disbelief and horror, a testament to the depths of human depravity and the indomitable spirit of survival. Fritzl was arrested the same day. On April 29, 2008, DNA evidence proved that he was in fact the father of all 7 of Elisabeth's children. The trial began on March 16, 2009. Fritzl pleaded not guilty. 11 hours of testimony by Elisabeth were played via video to the jurors in the courtroom. It was so distressing that jurors could only listen for 2 hours at a time. Elisabeth's children and her mother refused to testify. On the second day of the trial, Fritzl's eyes met with Elisabeth, and he immediately turned pale. The next day, he changed his plea to guilty. That same day, the 73-year-old retired electrician was convicted of false imprisonment, slavery, and murder. Fritzl was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for 15 years. There was a long road to recovery following the rescue of Elisabeth and her children. The upstairs children and the downstairs children required intensive therapy. Lisa, Monica, and Alexander were overcome with anger for their father Josef, not only for what he had done to Elisabeth and their secret siblings, but for convincing them that they had been abandoned by their mother. Stefan, Felix, and Kirsten were sensitive to light and struggled with space issues. They spent so much time in the darkness that their eyes could not handle natural daylight, and they had a difficult time with their newfound space, as they were held captive in such a tiny area for so many years. Elisabeth was upset with her mother Rosemary for accepting Josef's story about her disappearance. It took many years, but Elisabeth eventually forgave her. Elisabeth moved to a rural village in northern Austria with her children, and they were given new identities. Stay tuned for a full recap of where Elisabeth is currently. Here is where this crazed lunatic is these days. From what I could find, he is still alive and incarcerated. In an interview sometime around May of 2023, he said he is sure his family will forgive him. In his first ever tell-all interview from behind bars, the Austrian criminal who fathered 7 children with his own caged daughter said apologized for his action but added, quote, "I didn't murder anyone." He was convicted of negligent homicide among his many crimes. He said he wanted to live to be 130 and detailed the punishing daily fitness regime he endures every day to keep him primed for release, and the delusional-filled reconciliation with the family he kept underground for 24 years. Fritzl, currently aged 87, told The Sun in a rambling statement issued through his lawyer Astrid Wagner, quote, "I miss my family very, very much. I am always thinking of them and how I would like to see my grandchildren. But I definitely believe that I'm going to see them again one day. I am sure that we are going to be reunited, and I think they are going to forgive me for what I have done. I'm sure of it. I regret my crimes and the hurt I have caused," he added. "I am extremely sorry for what I have done. I would never, ever do anything like that again." I would just add, though, that I didn't murder anyone or anything like that, so I do reject some of the ways I am sometimes referred to. He was sentenced to life imprisonment in 2009 for coercion, false imprisonment, enslavement, and for the negligent homicide of one of his infant sons. This crazy man claims to have become a changed man behind bars while getting therapy. He even wrote a book. I won't share the name of the book because I don't want him earning anything after what he did. Plus, he claims that life in prison has changed him. A quote from him, "It has most definitely changed me. Through having been incarcerated myself, I have developed a deeper appreciation of what this feels like for others. Doing therapy has helped me here, and I am very grateful that I got the opportunity to have this therapy. It helped me address my feelings of guilt and also to help me develop and change as a person and appreciate the perspectives and feelings of victims." In his interview, Fritzl described his regime at Grimstein prison in Krems-an-der-Donau, near the Austrian capital, but remained defiantly upbeat in the belief that he will walk free one day. Describing his daily habits of his diet and exercise plan, he revealed, quote, "Every day I start with a coffee. I have to have this to wake up properly, then this is quickly followed by a cup of hot cocoa. After this, I have tea and eat 3 eggs, a piece of toast with ham, and also a sausage and cheese spread, and I make sure to take vitamin C tablets and magnesium and zinc." Delusional Fritzl, who I understand is suffering from dementia, added, "I also drink lots of water throughout the day. I recently read that it has been scientifically proven that human beings can actually live to 150 if they eat well and exercise. So I want to live to 130, that's my plan." This man is about as crazy gets, in my opinion. He has said he wants a reconciliation with his 84-year-old former wife, despite his bizarre claims they are still married, even though they divorced 11 years ago. He reportedly avoids walking in the jail yard because there are a few prisoners just waiting to be able to beat me up. I bet there is. Even convicts have a certain code of ethics. The last piece of info I could find on this guy was that in April of 2022, the prison was set to release him, but a local prosecutor blocked that from happening, and they filed a complaint saying that he needs to stay at a high-security psychiatric prison because he still suffers from a non-treatable serious mental illness. In May 2008, a handmade poster created by Elisabeth, her children, and her mother at the therapy facility was displayed in the Amstetten town center. The message thanked local people for their support. It read, quote, "We, the whole family, would like to take the opportunity to thank all of you for sympathy at our fate," they wrote in their message. Quote, "Your compassion is helping us greatly to overcome these difficult times, and it shows us there also are good and honest people here who really care for us. We hope that soon there will be a time where we can find our way back into a normal life." Kirsten was reunited with her family on June 8th 2008, when she was awakened from her artificially induced coma. Doctors said that she would make a full recovery. It was revealed that Elisabeth and her children were more traumatized than previously thought. During captivity, Kirsten tore out her hair in clumps and was reported to have shredded her dresses before stuffing them in the toilet. Stefan could not walk properly because of his height of 5 foot 8 inches, which had forced him to stoop in the 5 foot 6 inch height cellar. It has also been revealed that normal everyday occurrences, such as the dimming of lights or the closing of doors, plunged Kirsten and Stefan into anxiety and panic attacks. The other three of Elisabeth's children who were raised by their father are being treated with anger and resentment at the events. In late July 2008, it emerged that Elisabeth ordered her mother Rosemary out of the villa they had been sharing in a secret location set up for them by a psychiatric clinic. Elisabeth was upset about Rosemary's passiveness during her upbringing. Lawyer Christoph Herbst, who represents Elisabeth and her family, said, "Fortunately, everything is going very well. They spend their time answering hundreds of letters from all over the world." Felix, Kirsten, and Stefan, brought up underground with their mother, have learned to swim. All of Elisabeth's children attended a 4-day summer camp organized by firefighters with 4,000 other young campers in August 2008. The children, along with their mother, have also made day trips, including swimming outings, on which care was taken to keep them out of reach of the paparazzi and to protect their privacy. In March 2009, Elisabeth and her children were forced to move out of the family's hideaway home and return to the psychiatric clinic where medical staff had started trying to heal the family and unite the upstairs and downstairs siblings during the previous year. Elisabeth was reported to be distraught and close to a breakdown after a British paparazzo had burst into her kitchen and started taking photographs. After the trial, Elisabeth and her 6 children were moved to an unnamed village in northern Austria, where they were living in a fortress-like house. All of the children require ongoing therapy. Factors that traumatized the upstairs children include learning that Fritzl had lied to them about their mother abandoning them, the abuse they had received from him during their childhood, and finding out that their siblings had been imprisoned in the cellar. The downstairs children receive therapy due to their deprivation from normal development, the lack of fresh air and sunshine while living confined in the basement, and the abuse that they and their mother had received from Fritzl when he came to the basement. All of the children might have genetic problems common to children born of this type of abusive relationship. Elisabeth was said to be estranged from her mother, Rosemary, who accepted Fritzl's story about Elisabeth joining a cult and did not pursue the matter further, but Elisabeth allows her 3 children who grew up in Josef and Rosemary's house to visit their grandmother regularly. Rosemary lives alone in a small apartment. An article in March 2010 in The Independent stated that Elisabeth and her children recovered remarkably well, given the difficult lives they endured for so long. According to Josef's sister-in-law, Christine, Elisabeth enjoys spending her time shopping, taking frequent showers, and driving. She has passed her driving test without difficulty. Her relationship with Thomas Wagner, one of her bodyguards who is 23 years younger than Elisabeth, was reported to be ongoing, with him becoming a big brother figure to her children. All of Elisabeth's children have developed normal sibling relationships with each other, and after having trouble dealing with the traumatic events, the 3 upstairs children slowly began recognizing Elisabeth as their mother. The children enjoy being outdoors, playing video games, and spending time with their mother and grandmother. Despite their strained relationship, Elisabeth and her mother Rosemary started visiting each other more, and Elisabeth has reportedly forgiven her mother for believing her father. So that concludes this crazy story. It's hard for me to even think about how crazy someone must be to do that to your own child. This story is a true testament to the fact that there are those among us that are seemingly normal, but in reality, they live in this truly odd mystery story that would make you stop, think, and say, wait, did that really happen? Thanks again for joining me in another video filled with mystery, intrigue, odd, and questions that sometimes boggle the mind. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. If you enjoyed this video, Here are 2 more videos that I've done recently, and I invite you to watch more videos here at Odd Mystery Stories.